went in the United States Marine Corps and flew F-4 fighter planes, 191 missions in Vietnam, and
wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty much fun, and there were 4 3-month sessions that you did, and I got lucky because my 4th session was the last 3 months I was there, and I went up to Iwakuni, Japan, and when the squadron went back, I had 3 weeks to a month left, so they left me in Iwakuni, Japan. We had dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, and there's a peace park there now, which we visited. But when I flew my plane, I flew over Hiroshima at however many 20,000 feet and looked through my bomb sight and took a picture with my little. We didn't have camera phones. I don't know what happened to it, but I took a picture looking through my bomb sight of where the Enola Gay was flying. I was living in a 1-room tenant house on a farm about a mile away from the big country house that they were all living in. And I was living on about $600 a month. You know, I was paying private school, vacations, all their bills. And I was living on about $600 a month, which barely paid my rent and groceries and gas and insurance, and and it was Christmas Eve, and I'm sitting in my little house with a bare light bulb, kind of feeling sorry for myself.
Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. Mike is passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
Alan Northcutt, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I'm super excited for our time together. And like we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. So with your permission, we're going to start with where you were born, go up to today, and then we want to talk about one of the coolest books ever. I think this is really, really cool. It's a Christmas book, by the way. I don't know if you can tell, but it's a really, really cool book. And I love the fact that you wrote it. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, and thanks for sending it to me, by the way. So where were you born?
You can send a check anywhere, anytime you want.
You bet, sir. You bet. So where were you born?
I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, February 4th, 1941.
Oh my gosh.
And there's many people in this area that were born the first week in February.
Yeah.
And the significance of that is it's 9 months after Derby Day.
Yeah. So I actually interviewed a gentleman who's from Louisville. Did you ever know David Jones? David?
Yes. They started
Humana.
Extendicare, which ended up being Humana. And I know all those guys.
So I just interviewed his son yesterday. So David Jones wrote a memoir that was just recently published. And David Jones Jr. finished editing it after his dad passed. His dad passed of cancer. He edited it, finished editing it and also got it published. And so I literally interviewed him yesterday. That's amazing. You guys know each other. That's so cool.
Yeah, well, but vaguely.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think everybody in Louisville knew him. So, right? He was a big deal. So you're born in Louisville. Did you grow up there?
Well, I haven't grown up yet, according to my wife.
My wife says the exact same thing. She had 3 kids, right? 2 children, and right.
So I went through high school here. Then I went to Washington and Lee University, and then I went in the United States Marine Corps and flew F-4 fighter planes, 191 missions in Vietnam, and
wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty much fun. And there were 4 3-month sessions that you did, and I got lucky because my 4th session was the last 3 months I was there, and I went up to Iwakuni, Japan, and when the squadron went back, I had 3 weeks to a month left, so they left me in Iwakuni, Japan. And my wife came over, and we bought a Honda 90 and zipped all over Japan with no helmets, no nothing back in those days, and saw all the really cool spots. And we had a little tiny house that is basically one room, and it had a bath. It didn't have a shower. It had a bathtub. And the only way you could make the water hot is you went outside, and there was a U-shaped pipe, and you built a fire with wood under that pipe.
That was your water heater.
And of course, the water rises, and the cold water would come in the bottom, and then it would heat it, and it would go out the top. And you had about 20 minutes before you could boil an egg in that water.
Wow.
But yeah,
that's
it was
incredible.
It was pretty much fun. Went to all the really cool spots.
What a cool story.
Yeah.
So I just recently did a report on a Buddhist temple that is in Japan, and it's still the single largest wooden building, wooden structure in the world, and it's in Japan. It's crazy.
Wow.
It's crazy. So
and back in those days, we had dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, and there's a peace park there now, which we visited. But when I flew my plane, I flew over Hiroshima at however many 20,000 feet, and looked through my bomb sight and took a picture with my little. We didn't have camera phones. I don't know what happened to it, but I took a picture looking through my bomb sight of where the Enola Gay was flying.
Wow, incredible. So, growing up in Louisville, what was your favorite thing about growing up there?
Well, we got 4 seasons. A spring, a summer, a fall, and a winter, which are all distinctly different. And I love playing football and hardball and soccer in high school. And we had a high school fraternity called the Athenaeum Literary Association. And we published a book every year, and everybody had to write, a short story or a poem or something.
That's awesome.
And they had little cartoons for each person.
Yeah.
And my cartoon was an empty chair with a cowboy hat on it. It said, either gone to the horse races or girlfriend's house.
Oh my gosh.
Not in school.
Right. I call my daughter the Vapor, right? She lives with us and we never see her. It's like
right, the Vapor.
Right.
That's a good name.
Yeah. So in high school, so growing up, who was the most influential person to you?
I think, probably my athletic coaches, our football coach, soccer coach, and soccer isn't much of a coach, football and baseball.
What position did you play in? What position did you play in football?
I played tailback and sort of wide receiver.
So you had some wheels.
I had some wheels. I could run a 10-800, and the Olympic record was 10-2. So I was 6 seconds off 6/10 off the Olympic record.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, and I played safety on defense.
Yeah, you really could run. That's cool.
And I would fake like I didn't, the back would come out for a pass.
Yeah.
And I would kind of fake like I didn't see him. And then they'd say, oh, this guy ain't paying attention. They'd throw the ball and I'd intercept it and run for a touchdown.
Crack up. I love that. And being a safety, you got to be able to hit, right? Yeah. So in high school, did you have a favorite subject?
Probably math. we had a professor, and in class he would put a question on the board, and you would write it down and hand it to your neighbor,
Mm-hmm.
and then he'd say, "Here's the answer." And if you got it right and your neighbor got it wrong, you would switch seats, and you would try and move from the back of the, like 15 of us in the class.
Yeah.
You'd be 15th. And when you got to number one, you'd get a thing called a distinction. And then, on the chalkboard, they'd write everybody's name and how many distinctions you had. Then you go to the back of the class again.
So you go back and start all over.
Start all over again. Once you get to the number one seat, you get, sent to the back of the class again.
So you liked that system, it sounds like.
Oh, it's called trapping.
Yeah.
You try and trap the guys ahead of you.
Right.
And it was fun. It was not just there and,
right.
It's a game.
Yeah. Different way to do it.
Yeah.
That's cool. And I love the competition part of it, because obviously you're really competitive.
Moderately.
Moderately. So you graduate from high school. Oh, real quick. Did you have a favorite teacher in high school?
Probably, well, we had one, trying to remember his name. He was from Croatia, or an immigrant.
Yeah.
And he and a bunch of guys were sworn to kill Mussolini on sight if they could ever get sight of him.
Right.
But obviously Mussolini was over there and he's over here. But they didn't like him much.
No kidding. There wasn't much to like, right?
Yeah.
So you graduate from high school and you go to school, you said Washington, somewhere?
Washington and Lee in Lexington, Virginia.
Okay.
Named for President Washington, George Washington, and Robert E. Lee, the head of the Confederacy.
Gotcha. So Washington Lee University. And what was your major?
Business.
Yeah.
It was commerce with special attainments in business administration, something like that.
Yeah. So what was your favorite thing about going to college there?
Probably the parties. Well, when I went to school, my mother's first cousin, Bill Dabney, he said, "Let me give you some advice. Never darken the doors of the library. Get on all the sports teams, have dates, go to parties, play intramural sports, and college sports. Become a salesman, a conversationalist,
mm-hmm.
because all the A students end up working for the C students because they get the personality of a concrete block."
Oh, wow. That's crazy. So you didn't go to the library. You went and made sure you were around people the whole time, right? And
I didn't know where the library was.
There you go.
I made sure I didn't know where it was.
There you go.
In case I went in by mistake.
Right. So you graduate from college, from Washington Lee. Where do you go from there?
Well, I'd gone to the PLC platoon leaders class, 2 6-week summer camps in Quantico, Virginia, to join the United States Marine Corps.
Wow.
And when you graduate, you get a commission as a second lieutenant.
Right.
And the great thing about starting with a platoon leaders class is the day you become a real Marine, you've got 4 years longevity.
Yeah.
Which, your pay is 30% higher than somebody that just went in boot camp right out of college.
So they counted the time that you were in college?
I was in college going to the 2 6-week summer camps.
Wow. That's cool. That's cool. So you
Yeah.
go in with 4 years already served, right? Already, right? So
4 years longevity, and
yeah.
instead of getting $275 a month, I got $370, something like that.
Yeah. Well, every little bit helps, right?
Yeah,
So why did you pick the Marine Corps?
because the Marine Corps is the best.
Yeah.
Whenever there's
That's a
bad,
Marine Corps Bulldog, by the way, just so you know.
good. Yeah, I see it. Yeah,
That says tee it up for Marines.
yeah, jarheads.
Yeah. So there's a golf tournament we play in every year that that helps to sponsor or helps to fund an organization, a foundation that works with the First Marine Division. So when we play the golf tournaments, they always have members of the First Marine Division at each hole, and we get a chance to talk with them, and they get a chance to show us what they do and all that kind of stuff, So
Right.
it's really cool. And by the way, they look younger every year, right?
Yeah,
The last
of
time,
course they do.
yeah, the last time we did this, I wanted to get a hold of their mama and let their mama know they ran away from home. It's like, wow, So yeah, some of them look like they were 12. So you get into the Marine Corps and you become a pilot,
Right.
and you end up flying missions in Vietnam.
191 missions.
Right. What was that like?
Well, when we flew in, the scaredest I was flying into Da Nang on a big Northwest Airlines, transport.
It wasn't in your
tail.
fighter jet?
They call them the red tails because the Northwest had big red tails.
Right. I remember that. Yeah.
I hadn't flown a mission yet, but
yeah.
I was afraid I was going to get shot up through the bottom of the airplane.
Oh my gosh.
Then, after my first mission is always the wingman for the commanding officer.
Yeah.
So he takes you and kind of shows you the territory, without using your navigation stuff. There's the Dong Ha River, there's the DMZ, there's Ashiao, there's this, that, and the other. So that, if you lose your electronics, you can find your way home.
Wow. So manually, how you find your way home?
It's called VFR, Visual Flight Rules.
Yeah. So you just
and when
follow
it's cloudy,
the river?
It's IFR, Instrument Flight Rules.
I got you. So you just follow the river?
Just follow the river and go down to Monkey Mountain and hang a right, and there's a runway.
Wow. So you weren't flying off of a carrier, you were flying off of a runway?
Flying off a runway.
Yeah.
I've got, in 2 different planes, I've got a total of 7 takeoffs and landings on aircraft carriers.
Gotcha. So most of it was off land. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, we would, in Pensacola, Florida, 30 days, we would practice landing on a runway in a swamp with a landing signal officer and a meatball and the mirrors and all that stuff. And, they would talk you down, and then they blew the whistle and says, "You're going to the carrier tomorrow." And we'd say, "Oh my God, I'm going to die."
Yeah. How tiny does that carrier look when you're trying to land on it?
Looks like a postage stamp.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, it's pretty small. After doing it for 30 days, 2 missions a day and 6 landings, so 12, 360 landings on the simulated carrier deck. It's just another
Carrier
day.
deck. Yeah, right. Yeah. Another target, another place to land.
You catch the wire. I had 3 landings on one, and then I went to Kingsville, Texas, and landed on another carrier down there. And that was an interesting one because it was a single engine. It was the plane the Blue Angels flew.
Oh, there you go.
And there's nobody in the plane but you.
Right.
You
You're in there by yourself.
Guy or an instructor. You're on your own.
Yeah. That's wild. So after Vietnam and after going and hanging out with your wife in Japan, right, on that Honda 90, where'd you go after that?
I came back to Louisville.
Yeah.
And my mother's first cousin, Watson Dabney, who was one of the senior partners at a company called JJB Hilliard WL Lyons and Company, a New York Stock Exchange brokerage firm.
Yeah.
He said, I want you to come and, be a stockbroker.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through training for 6 weeks, and all they taught you was how to analyze securities.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't teach you how to be a salesman,
Mm-mm.
which should have been the other way around.
Right. Exactly.
And unfortunately, I'd been there for about a month, and one of the senior partners named Ross Todd died.
Mm-hmm.
And he ran the syndicate department.
Yeah.
And the syndicate department is a department where you participate in underwritings, either initial public offerings, raising money for the first time, or companies that are growing and need to raise more money.
Right.
And so you want to be in those groups.
Yeah.
Because we were in a lower bracket because we were a small company. But if our share was 5,000 shares, you would like to get your 5,000 shares to sell.
Right.
But you'd have to request what you wanted. And sometimes they say, it's all done. We're taking it all. You ain't getting any. If it was a really attractive company.
Right. But
because I played golf and scuba dived and sailed and, was an athlete playing sports with all the syndicate managers from New York, they usually gave me a big chunk.
Oh, that's cool.
And the great thing about syndicate managers is they usually end up running the big firms.
Yeah.
So I knew the senior partners at most of the New York Stock Exchange, Salomon Brothers, Goldman Sachs,
Mm-hmm.
Lehman Brothers, all the big firms. So
that's awesome.
It's pretty much fun, and just because I'm a BS artist.
So you picked up the sales thing sort of organically then?
Yes. Yeah. It's
So
just I was in a high school fraternity called the Athenaeum Literary Association, and
yeah.
everybody had to write a story for it every year. But we played sports and went to parties, and we had a meeting every Saturday night at 6:00 at a church, and it was call the meeting to order, minutes, old business, new business. Anybody got anything else to say? And and people that didn't have a girlfriend, they'd just get up there and talk about nothing.
Yeah.
And the president would say, "That's enough, Charlie. Let's move on." Anyway, but it was fun. It taught me the rules of order, and that every major company in the world goes by the same. When they have board meetings, they do the same thing.
Yeah. So your mom's first cousin,
right,
was the same guy that told you to not darken the doorway of the library in college.
Right.
Was the same guy that when you came back from Vietnam hired you to be a stockbroker.
Well, his brother did.
Oh, his brother did. Okay.
His brother did.
So you get
and an interesting byline.
Yeah.
He flew in World War II.
Ooh.
They were flying. He was flying. I think they're B-29s, 4-engine prop bomber plane.
Mm-hmm.
They were flying out of North Africa, trying to knock the Ploesti oil fields out that Hitler was getting all his oil for his tanks from.
Right.
And they were flying over at 20,000 feet, and the Germans would see them on radar and, shoot a bunch of the planes down with their anti-aircraft.
Yeah.
And he went to the general and said, "General, I got an idea." He says, "Well, let's hear it. We ain't doing very well how we're going." He says, "Why don't we fly across the Med at 50 feet? And they won't see us coming." And
right. They're not high enough. Yeah.
Pop up and knock and they did. They knocked out the fields on the first mission.
Wow.
Then he says, "You're a pretty smart guy. We got some problems with the Japanese in the Pacific. I'm gonna send you over there and see if you can get that turned around."
Solve that deal.
And there's there's a movie called The Bridges of Toko-Ri, and you know it's that's not the right name. It's the bridge on the River Kwai, but for some reason they had to not call it the bridge on the River Kwai. And they were the Japanese were moving all their supplies across the River Kwai on a beautiful bridge that the British had built, slave labor, they're prisoners, and they built this beautiful bridge where the Japanese were getting all their supplies. And so he went in and was told that there's anti-aircraft at each end of the bridge, at both ends of the bridge. And you need to just come in and make one run and drop all your bombs. And he said, I'm not doing that. He didn't tell the general that, but he said to his crew, said, we're not doing that. We're going to knock the anti-aircraft out. So they made 2 runs and knocked the anti-aircraft out. Then it was a turkey shoot to knock the bridge out.
Right.
And they did. And that was basically partially the end of World War II.
Wow.
When they couldn't get the Brits were highly irritated that they'd knocked out the beautiful bridge that they'd built.
Yeah.
But then they got freed as the prisoners. So what ends well is well.
Yeah. So what rank was your mom's first cousin when he came up with that strategy of flying 50 feet over the Mediterranean?
I don't know the answer, but I would bet that he was like a captain. The second lieutenant, first lieutenant, captain, major, lieutenant colonel.
Yeah.
He was probably a captain or a major. He's in command of the plane.
So he's a few levels below the general, though.
He wasn't a general yet.
And he's suggesting to the general, we do this. Right. And then it worked. And the general says, okay, now go into the Japanese theater and get this thing figured out.
And get that figured out.
He sounds very smart, right?
Yeah.
Like think outside the box kind of thing.
Oh, well, jumping a little bit of a ditch. My wife and I, my 2 children used to go out to Vail. He had a house in Vail when Vail was maybe 300 people. I mean, it was a tiny.
It's a lot more now.
It was there was Vail Village, and then there was Lions Head.
Yeah. And
between Vail Village and Lions Head, there's a 50-acre field with nothing but dune grass.
Yeah.
And he had a house in between, 2, 3, 4-bedroom house or apartment. And my wife and 2 children used to go out, and when we went in 1970, there was 1 2-man chair that went from Vail Village up to Midvale.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Wow.
And there were no grooming, no trail markers. You just pointed them down.
Wow. That is incredible.
Yeah.
So how long were you with the brokerage firm?
Well, I'm still, let's see, that would have been 1963, 73, 83, 93, 103, 113, 62 years. I mean, I'm still not employed. I was employed up until about 3 years ago.
Wow. That's incredible. So you were with them for 59 years? 59 years, 60 years?
62, something like that.
Unbelievable. That is incredible. So what was your favorite thing about being a stockbroker in that company for 6 decades?
running the syndicate department and being able to get big chunks of stock on underwritings for our brokers to sell to their clients.
So you
And
were
I would
spending a lot of
advise-
time. You were spending a lot of time trying to get that for your company, right? Right. That was a big deal.
Playing golf, sailing, scuba diving,
Right.
partying down.
Right.
You know, that was, you know, I'm a BS artist, so
I got you. You're rubbing elbows, right?
and I can
you're
play all
staying
this-
and you're staying as far away from the library as you possibly can.
I know where it is.
I love that. That is really amazing advice, right? I just think that's really cool. Your mom has some really cool first cousins, just so we're clear, right?
Oh, she did, and
Right.
and you know, I've got a bad case of ADHD. as every CEO of every company in America is diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah,
We
guaranteed.
sleep 4 or 5 hours a day, and the rest of the time we're partying down or looking for new ideas or make the world a better place.
Yep. That's exactly it. That's what it's all about.
And take out the bad guys.
There you go. So at some point, and by the way, I read the story about the mid 80s and where you were and what was going on in your life and all that kind of thing. And I think it's absolutely remarkable. And I'm hoping you can share that story with us. And because this book is The Legend of Chris Moose. And it's technically it's the ugliest moose in the world, right? But really not.
He was.
Really not. You know what I mean? And by the way, the illustrations, he's a pretty good looking moose as far as I can tell, right? I mean, I'm not a big moose expert, but he's a pretty good looking moose, right? His heart's even prettier, right?
Right.
So you wrote this story. Can you tell this to us? I mean, it was mid 80s, and there were all kinds of really wild things going on in your life at that time. Can you talk about that for a second?
Well, I was in the process of getting divorced.
Yeah.
From my wife and 2 children, or from my wife, not divorcing the children. You got them forever.
Yeah.
And I was living in a 1-room tenant house on a farm about a mile away from the big country house that they were all living in. And I was living on about $600 a month. You know, I was paying private school, vacations, all their bills. And I was living on about $600 a month, which barely paid my rent and groceries and gas and insurance. And it was Christmas Eve. And I'm sitting in my little house with a bare light bulb, kind of feeling sorry for myself. And I said, well, I had a few pops of Kickapoo Joy Juice, AKA bourbon.
Right.
And after a few drinks, my creative juices started flowing. And I said, I need to write a book, like, what's the Night Before Christmas.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write a book, another Christmas classic that everybody will read to their children on Christmas Eve. That's got some lessons in it.
Yeah, your version of it. Yeah,
my version of it.
Yeah.
And so I used to ride horses. We fox hunted. I used to ride horses, and one of the ladies had names for all the animals, like Nosy the rabbit and Smarty the fox and Hooty the owl and Pokey the turtle and all those. So I stole those nicknames from all the animals.
For the characters in the book.
For all the characters in the book.
Right.
And it starts with Ugly the moose. He's all the animals want to go to Mom and Papa Bear's house for Christmas Eve. And they can't, most of them are too small to get there through the snow. So Ugly the moose picks them up and they jump up in his antlers. And he carries them to Mom and Papa Bear's house. And when they get to Mom and Papa Bear's house, they suddenly realize that Papa Bear has forgotten. And Ugly, he's too big to fit in the house, so he's excluded. He's outside all by himself.
Mm-hmm.
So they suddenly discovered that Papa Bear has forgotten to go get the tree. So Smarty the Fox says, why don't we open the window and Ugly can stick his head in and we can decorate his antlers
Mm-hmm.
and he can become our tree. And so they do. And the last thing is, so they decorated his antlers with ornaments and lights and tinsel.
Mm-hmm.
Then they danced and they twirled. And Chris Moose became known as the most beautiful moose in the world.
Yeah.
And I always tear up when I read that. But it's
a sweet story.
Oh yeah.
It's a sweet story, and it's something that children need to hear, right? And
there's lots of lessons in there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how smart you are,
yeah,
or how good an athlete, or how good looking you are. You have a place in the world.
Yeah.
You just have to find it.
Yeah.
And whatever you do, be the best you can be.
Yeah. Yeah. Years ago, I went to talk to my dad, and I was in a really bad place. And I had decided I was telling him I was thinking about getting out of the business. And my dad turned to me and he said, you know something? He said, I've never in my life ever seen anybody that works as hard as you do. I've never seen anybody that brings the intensity that you bring to everything you do. And he said, all you have to do is find a place where you belong and they value you.
Right.
There's no limits. There's no limit to what you can accomplish. And man, was he right.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Really wise, Yeah. And I followed his advice, thank God, right? And did really, really well because of what he shared with me. And that's really kind of the moral of the story is you'll go where you're appreciated, you go where you're valued, and you have a spot in this world. And people appreciate you for it. Right?
Yeah. And every journey starts with a single step.
Absolutely.
You just have to take that step and you'll come to a crossroads and say, which way should I go?
Yep.
Well, pick one of them and go, and then you'll have to adjust from there.
Yeah. So Ugly comes from is a servant to these other animals, to the other characters in the book.
Yeah, carry them to the
and
party.
carries them through the snow, right, to the place where the party is, right? Grandma's house, right?
Mama and Papa Bear.
Right. Sorry, I apologize. Mama and Papa Bear's house, right? So think about that for a second. That's an act of service.
Right.
Right? And he's helping the way he can, the way he's built, that kind of thing, because the other animals couldn't make it through the snow. That's the thing that I want people to understand is everybody in this world, and this is what your book points out, everybody in this world has a unique ability. They have something that they can do to contribute, just like Ugly did, right?
You just got to find it.
Yeah, you just got to find it. That's your place in the world, right?
Yep.
What was your favorite
place?
Exactly. What was your favorite thing about writing this book?
My favorite thing, I think, is that I think it's going to become a Christmas classic.
Yeah.
That people, there's so many lessons in it that parents can pass on to their children through Chris Moose's experience.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not looking to make a pot full of money on it. I mean, if I make money on it, it's fine. I'll, give it to the people that helped me write it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just the thing in life is giving to other people. And
it really
the expression is the more you give, the more you get.
Yeah. Yeah,
And,
it's absolutely, it's the most fulfilling thing you can do.
So I would like to leave kind of a legacy of Alan Northcutt of having written a book.
Yeah,
I mean, I've got the things that are important to me and my family,
sure.
but nobody else cares about that. But, you know, that book could sell millions of copies worldwide and be in every different language known to man, and people would read it to their children, and I can make parent-child relationships better, and those children have better, fulfilling lives because they've learned lessons from old Chris.
Oh, Chris. Oh, Chris. The most beautiful moose in the world, right?
He is.
So is there anything else you'd like to cover before we wrap up? The name of the book is The Legend of Chris Moose. This is what it looks like, right? And it's an amazing Christmas book. So, and I loved it. I absolutely love it. And I do believe that it's going to be a Christmas classic. I absolutely believe that. To every fiber of my being.
Well, I do too. I'm loving getting on all your programs. I'd really like to get a call from the Oprah or the Tonight Show or something like that, where I'm live and in person with 120 million people watching.
Yeah. Well, let's see who we can connect you with. You never know.
Okay.
You never know.
I'm available.
Thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. This has been an amazing time, and it was really, really cool to get to know you and to get to talk about this amazing book. Thank you, Alan Northcutt. I appreciate you.
We need to have dinner sometime somewhere.
I'd love it. I'd absolutely love it.
Where are you? Are you in New York?
I'm in Oceanside, California, about 20 minutes north of San Diego. I'm just south of Camp Pendleton.
Okay. Well,
that's where I play in that tournament every year for the First Marine Division. That's this, right? So yeah,
I'm going out there. I've got some fraternity brothers and old Marine Corps friends, flight guys that live on the West Coast. And, we're going out there, and we're going out to the Baja and do some scuba diving.
Beautiful.
So,
well, when you're in town, look me up. Let's get together and go have some dinner.
Can you somehow send me all your contact information?
Yes, sir. I'll send it to you right now.
Okay. Thanks a million.
You got it, sir. Appreciate you.
It's been a pleasure. Bye.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at the Mike Litton Experience.